It's the original foreordained mission, talent, and destiny of this unit from expressing itself for 69, 10, or 10, as we should now call it. If you think in terms of two kinds of interference, quantity, quality. If you think in terms now of two kinds of therapy, physical to correct quantity and spiritual to correct quality. Now, how do you heal people spiritually? By first healing oneself. And that is the development of the healing consciousness of the doctor. Now, after we take a little break in a moment, I'm going to teach you the basic rules of how to be a healer. And it's not something that you do necessarily, or it's not something that you even say. It is something that the way you be. We're going to take a formula we call the be, do, and have formula, and we're going to take a thing we call PSHC, practice, success, and healing consciousness, and we're going to drag this from the lowest to the highest, and we're going to evolve a system wherein that patient, when that patient comes in, is going to go through a telephone communication with words back and forth, walk in the front door and are handed a certain piece of paper, open it up, they're going to read 5 lines, and these lines are going to bring out certain kinds of feeling in that patient. Then we're going to have the patient to complete a questionnaire, and those questionnaires are going to ask questions about chief complaint, not chronic problems, but chief complaint problems. Then we're going to show that patient an 6-minute film. Then we're going to go through some steps. Now, we may leave off one, add one. You may have some you like better. But what we're going to do is to process, quote, that patient so that in the process of our relationship, we will build a composite personality. We will build a resonance, a relationship with that patient where that our healing consciousness will begin to apply, and faith, confidence, and belief in you as their doctor, in chiropractic as the technique, and belief in the value and the end result, the logic and common sense, the office procedure, therefore, and the personality that we're going to apply is going to automatically do some healing in your practice. That kind of technique is called healing consciousness. It is something that should be developed out for you for a full week. But we're going to take 80 minutes and develop out how to be a healer, not only for the chiropractor, but also for the chiropractic assistant, for the technician, and for the people who care for patients. Whenever I discovered practical ways to apply the added benefit to my chiropractic care, whenever I started to look around for the common denominator, because I used roughing in the early years, I used HIO, I used full spine, I used therapy, I used Ouija boards, I used blowtorches, I used colonic irrigators, and I got a certain degree of results with all of them, and I said, what is the common denominator? There is something. I have taken the last 3 decades and figured out what it is, put it into formulation so that hopefully I can transfer it to an audience like this, and you in turn not only as the doctor, but as people running an office and expanding that office can bring in people 50, 75, 100 a day and bathe these people in an atmosphere, in a formula that while they get their adjustment to remove the quantity interference, the quality interference is also removed. It's a double-pronged attack. That's what we're going to learn after a 20-minute break. All the photographs that are on your program. Will you close those doors back behind me, please? Excuse me. Will you pull those door to behind there? That's the girl. Claire, see that the doors are pulled to. All right, now let's study a little bit. Try to relate to me now as if I'm sitting right beside you. We're right around a coffee table. Let's do some studying together. Take this infinite oneness drawing and have it in front of you. Let me tell you this little quick story. About 33 years ago, when I'd been in practice about 2 years, I suddenly awoke to the reality that people were getting well, and I mean getting over conditions, from many different sources in the world. Now, B.J. had just about convinced me that the only way in the world to get somebody well was to put that atlas where it belonged and remove all ASAPs and ASRAs and so forth. Now, I begin to discover that there was a lot of research going on into a lot of fields that did not contain medicine, drugs, surgery, chemical means, artificial means to cure people. And suddenly my prejudice got sufficient so that I could honestly, even though I hid while I accepted that consideration, because I thought maybe that if B.J. knew that I was even thinking along these lines, that I may get out of his favor. And I did not want to be in disfavor with B.J. Now, some of you now, young college graduates and so forth, and that language perhaps is confusing to you in that you don't know that world of 35 years ago when B.J. Palmer was at the height of his dominance in the chiropractic world, and how a student would walk out of that school after 18 months of training with a hellfire and brimstone B.J. Amen philosophy. And so it was sinful for us to think anything beyond an atlas and axis adjustment, or that there was a need for diagnosis and or therapy. The word was a disdain for most of us. But things in my life begin to develop in such a way that I begin to discover that there were other ways and other things for people to get well. Now, all of this said to me was that BJ had said that if anybody gets well, it's because the atlas axis has been corrected. Even though it may be a foreign component, or they may be kicked in the rear, or whatever it may be, the concussion of forces on the outside greater than the internal resistive forces corrected subluxated atlas.